Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
Wacomico County and the city of Salisbury get underway with new leadership. We'll have an exclusive interview with the new mayor, Jack Heath. Also, Governor John Carney lays out his priorities, and we look at the circumstances surrounding the death of a humpback whale that washed ashore on Assateague Island. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. In our studio this morning is Greg Bassett. He's editor and general manager of the Salisbury Independent. And on the phone with us is Susan Canfora, reporter for Coastal Point and a contributor to The Independent. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Don.
Hi, Don.
So, Greg, I want to turn to you. The new Wacomico County executive, Julie Giordano, seems to be getting her feet wet now. Debate over the liquor license. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with that and how you rate her.
Yeah, very tense meeting a week ago involving Ms. Giordano and the county council. She went in asking for enabling legislation that would allow the county to privatize its dispensary system. Currently, right now, there are 3 county dispensaries in the county. There are 2 liquor stores that operate selling alcohol as part of a restaurant license agreement. There's a 3rd one that could potentially develop, but it's not being used for that purpose right now. But what she wants to do is keep the dispensary system, but then also allow 10 different liquor stores to open across the county. She went in and asked for enabling legislation support from the council for a letter that would go to key members in the General Assembly, committee chairman who decide this stuff and would give some context for our local lawmakers to write a bill that they would get behind. And she was there was a lot of resistance from the council, a lot of questions. They seemed kind of unhappy with the direction that she was taking, that she was this far ahead without getting their advice up front. And it set kind of a negative tone for the meeting that day.
One of the things I understand is that there's an issue about whether or not there'd be revenue lost. And one of the quotes that popped out at me from Giordano was, it says, as county executive, if I can't generate $750,000 to $800,000 to make up for that, I probably shouldn't be sitting in this seat. What do we make of that?
Yeah, the dispensary system contributes to the general fund between $700,000 and $1 million a year to the county. One of the reasons that no one's wanted to touch this is that if you were to license these stores, could you make up that revenue through the licensing? There are concerns that that couldn't happen. So what are we going to do to make up this money? And she's like, look, in a $155 million budget, I can find a way to come up with $1 million somewhere. So she's very optimistic about that. But they were very very skeptical. But one thing that I had never thought about was this the disparity grant that we get from the state. We get between $11 and $12 million a year from the state just as a cash payment because we're a poor county. And the idea is if you are willing to walk away from $1 million in guaranteed revenue from your dispensary system, will the state also cut $1 million from your disparity grant? So then you've got perhaps the loss of $2 million to the bottom line. So that there's a real concern about that.
What does that say then about her relationship then with the county council? I mean, and her approach. I mean, since there wasn't an advice and consent before it was actually brought up.
Right. This thing's been going on for a long time. Other county executives have thought about this and proposed this. It's not a new issue by any means, and there is some support on the council. John Cannon, the council president, has always been in favor of private enterprise running this thing instead of the dispensary system. But how you do that is another matter. I thought maybe she was onto the right track in terms of getting their support by agreeing to keep the dispensaries in place, but only add the private competition. But I think this just turned into a power thing, and then the debate over that spilled into the next debate, in which she wants to change the configuration of people who report to her within the county executive's office. She wants to create a position that would help supervise law enforcement, public safety, and there was tremendous resistance to that, and that turned into a real fight.
Characterize that for us. What was exchanged here?
So the way the charter is written, she has a county administrator, director of administration. That's Bunky Luffman right now, and there's an assistant administrator in that office. When the charter was designed, I think the intent was that person would be kind of a administrator in waiting. If anything went wrong with the person who was the administrator, the deputy could step into that role. There'd be some cohesion with that. She wants to take the money for that position and create a public safety advisor position. And I forget what the exact title that she's giving it. It would be a little bit less money than what's funded for the position now, like $4,000 or $6,000 less, not a lot less. It's still a $100,000 job, but it would be someone who would be the liaison between her and her office and the county sheriff, the police departments, the volunteer fire companies in the county, the police accountability board, which has just been created, as well as debate with or negotiate with the city over the current fire services agreement. So she feels like she wants this expertise in her office, someone that she can tap to take care of these things. And she cites the idea that, there's declining morale in the fire companies. The first responders are going to have to get paid at some point. Lots of questions about how the county interacts with public safety.
The Delaware Governor John Carney has called for more investments in education, environment, and affordable housing, amongst other things. Susan, I want to turn to you. What kind of priorities do we see in the governor's budget?
Yes, Don. Governor Carney released his FY24 budget yesterday on Thursday. The general operating budget is $5.4 million. And one of the initiatives he seems to be really excited about is his proposal for a 9% pay increase for teachers. And that 9% pay increase includes 3% for all public education workers. The education portion of this budget includes a $15 million increase in opportunity funding for a total of $53 million. He wants to double the funding for early childhood education. He wants to lower preschool special education student-teacher ratios. And on January 17th, he was at an elementary school in Dover, and that's when he announced that 9% pay increase. He said teacher shortages mean that Delaware has to compete with other nearby states, and he said we will not be outcompeted by these states around us. Some of the other highlights of the budget are the governor has included $60 million to improve higher education campuses, $15 million for school building maintenance, $10 million for school safety, $16 million for libraries, and $6 million for affordable housing. So the budget has to be passed by June 30th, and the new fiscal year starts on July 1st.
Also understand, Susan, that we finally heard some words from Congressman Andy Harris. He's apparently stepping into the controversy surrounding the beach. That dead humpback whale on Aztec Island. Understand it involves offshore wind projects. Tell me a little bit about what he told you. A fairly long interview, as I understand it.
Yes, I talked to him yesterday. I've been reading the press releases and got some press releases from his office, and I talked to him yesterday, and he's calling for an immediate moratorium on windmill construction and all underwater geotechnical testing. He said he wants that moratorium until there's proof that isn't what has killed the whales that have washed up recently, some of them on the New Jersey shore and one at Assateague. He said the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has not offered any evidence that construction and that testing has not been what killed the whales. He wants what he calls a full and transparent release. And he also wants, he said he's a medical doctor, and we know he's a medical doctor, he wants the ear structures of the dead whales to be removed to determine if the sonar used to see where the turbines will be placed, if that sonar contributed to the deaths of the whales. He said he's particularly interested in the ear structure because the testing interferes with the whale's hearing, and that can cause them to get off track and be killed by ships. Meantime, the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus issued its own news release with very strong words for the congressman, saying he is spreading misinformation and he's smearing the offshore wind industry. The press release that they sent says there's no evidence at all that offshore wind has caused the whales to die. And it also said Harris is only protecting oil and gas coalitions that fund his campaign. In 2022, he got $28,000 in campaign donations. So I called Harris's press secretary, and she very quickly sent me a response to that press release. And what the congressman said is, it's a shame that the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus supports the killing of whales off the Atlantic coast. And as a matter of fact, the oil and gas industry supports the use of offshore leasing for wind development. And as another matter of fact, I have opposed oil and gas drilling off the Atlantic coast. So that's what the congressman had to say, and we'll certainly be following up on this, Don.
Well, just quickly, there's opposition to offshore wind, certainly from the folks in, say, Ocean City as an example. Does this play into all of that?
In Ocean City, my understanding is in Ocean City they're concerned about obstructing their view,
Right.
some of the people who live along the coast. But as far as the whales go, I don't think that has anything to do with Ocean City. The closest has been Assateague, and he did say there was a lot of whale deaths in New Jersey, along the New Jersey coast where a lot of this testing is going on.
Greg, I want to turn to you. We're going to have the swearing in of Jack Heath as the mayor of Salisbury, the new mayor. Tell me a little bit about that upcoming, and what do you think we expect to see from Jack Heath?
Yeah, that's tonight at the fire headquarters on Cypress Street. Mayor Jack Heath will be sworn in. It's going to be a nice event. Jack is, he's low key. He knows everyone. He's one of those people who really gets along with people. He will stop and listen to you. When you see him out among people, he's more than patient. He's got some vision. He's got some ideas. But the question is, how much momentum are we going to be able to keep in this city? Jake Day certainly was the excitable boy in so many ways, with lots of projects and certainly with infrastructure stuff and business, trying to grow business and trying to improve the town. Whether Jack would be more of a caretaker type mayor or if he's going to keep this aggression going. He cites the staff as, people that are all hired and trained by Jake, that they're not going to let him sit idle on anything. He's really excited about this. I get the feeling of energy from him when I'm around him and talk to him.
Because I know he's also indicated that he's going to run for election as well. So it sounds like he's in for the whole long haul, at least for the moment. Yeah,
I think that was part of the condition to get him appointed, that they didn't want just someone to hold the job for 8 or 9 months. He is going to run in November. Right now, there's no one really on the horizon to challenge him. But this is all happening so fast. We didn't think that Jake was going to leave like this. So whether Jack walks into the job or has some opposition, it's just too early to say.
And because I know that, for instance, he told me that if the things were not running as smoothly as they are, at least under Jake, and the staff wasn't there, he would not have taken the job.
Yeah, he's pretty clear about that. He likes the structure of the staff and the determination of the people that are working there. He likes working with them. It's a young crew. I mean, they get made fun of a lot because they are young. You hear the people in the county government making fun of the kids who are running the city. Jack is by no means a kid at all. So it's kind of a different environment, but you can see that there's respect for Jack. There's no doubt about it. When they talk about him, you can tell that they're looking forward to working with him.
Well, we've been speaking with Greg Bassett. He's editor and general manager of the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Also, Susan Canfora, reporter for Coastal Point and a contributor to the Independent. Appreciate you both stopping by and chatting with us this morning.
Yes.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Up next, the new leadership for the city of Salisbury. We now turn to the new mayor of Salisbury, Jack Heath, just appointed with the departure of Jake Day, who will join the Moore administration as Secretary of Housing and Community Development. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it.
So, well, first of all, was it a surprise?
It was a surprise. A week ago, the mayor called me in the office and told me about his leaving, and finished by saying that he was going to, if it was acceptable to me, nominate me for the position of mayor for the balance of his term.
So what was your reaction?
I was sort of like I think my mouth fell open initially, but then we had a good discussion about the future of Salisbury.
And what kind of things did he tell you that obviously you would not necessarily have thought about when you were president? I mean, because he's got a lot of executive stuff that's on his plate.
Well, I had the advantage of working with him for 8 years. I ran against him actually 13 years before I was on the council, before I was council president. And so I had a very good idea about what the vision was. And the one thing that I believe is this is not a new start. This is really a new chapter in the vision that was developed years ago.
So one of the things is that given his connection to Salisbury and the Eastern Shore, you think that's going to give us an edge up in terms of the agency that he heads? I mean, we're going to have a lot of competition, say, from a town like Baltimore, which is something he had not had to consider before.
Yeah, I think he's not going to forget Salisbury. I just came from a meeting where he said his dream job was being mayor, and now he's moving on. But he's never going to forget us. And he's got the ear of the governor, so I think that we won't be forgotten. And to be frank, I won't let him forget. I will be requesting things certainly to make sure that Salisbury gets what they need.
Because one of the things that strikes me is that under the Hogan administration, Larry Hogan, a Republican, he spent a lot of time on the Eastern Shore, paid a lot of attention to the rural areas. Obviously, that was his political bailiwick, as it were, amongst other things. Westmore's different. How do you see that relationship?
Well, I've met him a couple times already, and he likes the Eastern Shore. And he has told us and told me personally that he's going to spend more time on the Eastern Shore. I don't see that there's going to be that much of a change with the amount of time that they're spending on the shore.
In terms of top priorities, as I read, one of your top priorities is going to be housing.
Housing. We've got to get affordable housing in the city. It's been this way for years. If you talk to the realtors, the lack of inventory that we have has been hurting us, and certainly the affordability has been hurting us. The rents that are being charged now because there are so few apartments available is hurting the city, and this is nothing new, but competition. I believe competition is always good, because you get competition, and then people have to start worrying about the competitive pricing that could be coming.
Well, because one of the things is hitting us already is the fact that the federal assistance that was out there during COVID to help people from being evicted, that's expiring. Some people are already experiencing that. What can a city do, or what can a city do in terms of getting the state to intervene? What's your sense about that?
I think that we have to be advocates for the people, and we have to get as much help as we possibly can. Maybe a transition period where we can get back on our feet, and they can get back on their feet. But again, we still have jobs that are open, and trying to educate the people in terms of what those jobs are, and the minimum wage has just gone up. So I think that those are the kinds of things that we can help.
Also, of course, we've got high inflation rates, at least at this point, higher than in recent years. And this obviously has an impact on the budget. You've already seen it, high gas prices. How does the city adjust to that?
Well, we're struggling. We're struggling in two major areas. One is the increasing pricing, and the two is lack of supply. Our lead times have gone, if they tell you it's 3 months, we're lucky if we see something in 6 months. For instance, on the breaker that we need for the Ann Street Village project, that should have been up and running in December, and we've been pushed off 3 times on delivery dates. Now the next delivery date is supposed to be January 30th. We will see, and so we're seeing not just the pricing increases, but we just made a budget amendment for gasoline because of the price of gasoline. So it's going to be a crunch on the budget, and we're going to have to be very careful this year.
Do you see us looking forward, if inflation continues as it does, that some kind of tax increase might be required?
That's a last resort in my book. The last thing we need with our average wage that we have in this in the city, the last thing we need is tax increases. We may see some fee changes, which we're going to somehow you have to pay the piper. So we'll have to see what we can do. The message has been loud and clear so far to the teams, because we're going to get into the budget next week. So the message is loud and clear. You got to be really tight.
Also, in terms of development, we have obviously a situation in downtown Salisbury with the old fire station building. Mm-hmm. It's apparently up for lease. And there were some tax breaks, as I understand, in order to get that up and running in the past. One, what do you see as a future for that building? But two, did we get anything for our money when it came to tax breaks?
Yeah, I think we have. I think the thing is, you can make a deal that's quick, or you can make a deal that's staggered so that we get benefits over a period of time. And in this kind of economy, you've got to make sure that you can encourage the people to do the developments and then get the benefits down the road. And that's what we've done in a couple of different areas. The Horizon program, for instance, is one of those. We've done the same thing with the Here is Home projects in terms of connection fees and the like. So those things as incentives for people to keep investing in our city.
Do we lose anything because there are some cities, I remember reading a number of years back, where they had tax abatements programs of various kinds, and in the end, the development didn't necessarily come, and they were out to lunch, as opposed to some cities, by the way, that didn't do that, which thrived because of things like, for instance, if a company comes in, they're interested in labor, they're interested in education, they're interested in transportation, water, all those things, and then there's if you give us a tax break.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is you have to tie in some dates and sequence where they would lose some of those breaks if they don't fulfill their commitments. And that's what we've done in a couple of the programs that we had. And again, in this environment, and in this, we're talking about inflation, the Ross building is progressing, and it will be done in the spring and ready for students in next fall.
Because I'm reminded of the efforts to develop what used to be the old Salisbury Mall. There was some tax break proposals for that, and it never happened, in part because of the housing crisis. And it's still sitting there.
Yeah.
Is there any way to move that along?
Well, we're looking at it. The real estate people right now are getting very inventive, and I think that's what we're going to have to count on. They're the experts in the field. But yes, there are different things that happen in the city that you've got to be reactive to. And I don't think anybody saw COVID. Nobody saw COVID coming, but you have to adapt to that. And flexibility is the key. And we've been pretty successful at being flexible.
I want to turn attention to lots of events and transformation really of downtown. Events-wise, obviously, we have the Folk Festival. That'll be scaled down, as I understand, particularly in terms of its budget and whether or not you're going to get more money. I don't know. How do you see those kinds of events as opposed to, say, whether they're destination events or whether they're, for the local residents? There does seem to be some tension there.
Well, we'll now have the Maryland Folk Festival. And many other cities that have had the National Folk Festival have started their own festivals. It'll probably be a little smaller. We've had very good turnouts, and not just from local. One of the issues that we have, obviously, is hotel and conference space that is local in the city. And hopefully we're working on something now that we're anticipating that's going to happen on Lot 10.
Do you expect enough money to put on this festival in the sense of, obviously it's going to go on, it's not a matter of if, but that it's scaled down? I understand that at least at this point, the money for publicity and so on is it's pretty small. Do you expect some kind of way to get some kind of more money for publicity for all the things that you want?
We're very lucky. A lot of the businesses in town have stepped forward and become sponsors, and that makes it a lot simpler. It's not on the backs of the taxpayers, and so we see that as one of the primary things. And because again, it is going to be smaller. I think we have one less stage, but all the rest of the components of it are going to be exactly the same. We're going to have the home section and the craft section, and so we'll see how it goes. It's the first year, so we're going to watch it real close.
Also, we got the transition or transformation of downtown when it comes to the way it looks. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think there's 10 years ago now when the mayor first got elected and I was council president. If you remember, we had an open session we had 4 open sessions at Salisbury University where we brought the public in and we said, look, what do you want? What's your vision of the city and where you want to see it go? And from that information, we developed the master plan. And we're 10 years into it now, and we've pretty much done. My guess would be somewhere around 50-something% of the plan. It's not a surprise that the first couple of things on there were public safety, which is pretty much the same for every city. So some of the things that we've done, like the bike paths, I've gotten complaints about what the heck's going on with so many bike paths and everything. Well, the bike paths just didn't help and give the area for bikers. We've had, in the last year, we've seen a 20% reduction in accidents because we've slowed the traffic. When I first got on the council, I can remember the biggest complaints, I kept a log. The biggest complaints I had was speeding on Camden, in my district, Camden Avenue, South Boulevard, and you can name the streets, and it was bad. It was really bad. So now we've put the road softening and speed softening devices, bike lanes, bump outs, just like it was done years ago on Isabella Street. Right. And now they're saying, well, why all the bike lanes? Well, the bike lanes have helped, and the people who live on those streets appreciate it because they don't have to be afraid anymore.
Finally, we've also got a new county executive, Julie Giordano. She's overseeing the county council. Some new members actually on the board. Might be a bit more conservative than the past. How do you see relating to her? Have you met with her at all? What's the situation with that relationship?
I've met her, but haven't met with her. And one of the things, after I can get my arms around for a week or two, then I intend to meet with her and my staff and her staff. And my thing is, I go in anticipating a good meeting, and I think if you go in with that and don't look for problems, you won't have any. And we're committed to be the best we can be for our county. We're the biggest city in the county.
She's certainly politically much more conservative than, say, some of the other people who have occupied the office. And she's certainly very new. She's unlike, for instance, Bob Culver, who had been actually on the county council. How do you see that influencing the kind of relationship that you're going to have?
Well, everybody, when you shake their hand, has something to offer. And she's going to have a period of time of adjustment, for sure. But she's got a good staff. Bunky's been around for years, very solid individual. And I think the tone will be set. And she's already said that can't wait to work with the city, and we'll take it one step at a time.
We've been speaking with Jack Heath. He is now the new mayor of Salisbury, and we appreciate you taking the time to stop and...
Don, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to it.
You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.